This is Deborah Atkinson. Welcome to the Flipping 50 show, where I address your top questions and the things you struggle with most so you can have more energy and less decision fatigue about what to eat and how to move. And you can change your thoughts so you can flip 50 and have the life and the energy you love in this second half. And back with me today, I'm excited to have Stephen Masley. And he is a physician, nutritionist, trained chef, author, and the creator of the #1 all-time health program for public television, 30 Days to a Younger Heart. He helps motivated people tune their brain, heart, and sexual performance. Dr. Masley is a fellow with 3 prestigious organizations: the American Heart Association, the American College of Nutrition, and the American Academy of Family Physicians, and is a clinical associate professor at the University of South Florida. His research focuses on the impact of lifestyle choices on heart health, brain function, and aging. Dr. Masley's passion is empowering people to achieve optimal health through comprehensive assessments and lifestyle changes. As a best-selling author, he has published several books: 10 Years Younger, The 30-Day Heart Tune-Up, Smart Fat, and his latest book, The Better Brain Solution, plus numerous scientific articles. His work has been viewed by millions on PBS, the Discovery Channel, the Today Show, and in over 500 media interviews. He continues to see patients and publish research from his medical clinic in St. Petersburg, Florida, and he offers weekly blogs on his website, drmasley.com. Welcome, Dr. Stephen Masley.
Hi, Deborah. I'm really happy to be with you.
I'm so excited to have you back, and I'm so excited to learn a little bit more and dive into the Better Brain Solution. And before I do that, so I'm reading all of these things, all right? That is a long, prestigious list. And clearly, whatever water you are drinking, I think the rest of us probably want to drink it, but this is really relative. Can I ask, how old are you?
Well, I'm 62 and I feel great. That's, I think, the most important thing. I really follow this. And I find if I follow what I preach, I have more energy, I get more done. It's a win-win.
Yeah, obviously. I mean, you are not letting too much grass grow underneath you right now. So let's dive in and talk a little bit about that. I mean, better brain health. I think we're talking to the right audience here. So all of my listeners, there's probably some degree here because many of us have aging parents or may have lost our parents, and dementia or Alzheimer's may have played out in our lifetime in caring for them. And then it becomes a concern for us. But there's also the brain fog that hits many women at midlife. So what are risk factors? How do we know that, they may relate to us and premature memory loss?
So, yeah, who's at risk for premature loss? That's a big concern. And I think we're seeing more. You hit it with brain fog. I think we're seeing it more and more today than ever before. So, elevated blood sugar is probably number one. If you're insulin resistant and your blood sugar is up even a little bit, we're not talking diabetes, we're talking mild elevations. That has major impact. Another one, especially when we look at epidemiologic studies, when we look at populations and what predicts someone's increased risk, inactivity is a really powerful predictor of accelerated memory loss. Both our research shows aerobic activity and strength training independently are both really important for your brain, and they help you improve your brain speed and performance. A history of depression, and that's not too surprising because if you have, I think of depression as depressed brain function, and one of the more common causes for that is we're chronically stressed and we're nutrient deprived and we're not providing the nutrients for our brain to function well. And when you add inactivity on top of that, it makes it even worse. So people who have depression are 300% more likely to get Alzheimer's disease than those who don't.
300?
300%. So
wow,
that's a big one. A head injury, if you've been bonked on the head and had a concussion, a real concussion, 300% more likely. And the ApoE4 genotype, I think those are really the top ones. Cardiovascular, if you're high risk for cardiovascular disease, you're definitely more likely. So I think those are the really top factors that predict.
Okay, come back to that. So for those listeners who've not heard of the genotype that you just referred to, say a little bit more about that. Explain it to a listener who's brand new, hearing that for the first time. What the heck is that?
So ApoE4 genotype, we have genotypes in the ApoE section of our chromosome that are 2, 3s, and 4s. And if you go back 300,000 years, all humans had an ApoE4 genotype, and that made us more likely to fight off infections. It made us more inflamed. So when we cut our foot walking the plains or the lion bit us and we got, goobers in our wound, we were more likely to heal. But if you're more inflamed, yes, you'll have less infections, but you'll be more likely to get heart disease and memory loss. And somewhere around 200,000 years ago, people started getting, and then the 80,000 years, we got the ApoE2 and ApoE3 genes. And so we're less inflamed, and we're less likely to get heart attacks and memory loss, Alzheimer's disease. But still 20% of the population has an ApoE4 gene. And if they have it, they're more likely. That's 20% of people. They're 300% more likely to get memory loss, Alzheimer's disease in their lifetime.
How does somebody find out if they've got that?
You can ask your doctor. Mostly it'd be like, usually if ApoE4 is involved, you're going to very likely, you don't just pick it up yourself. You've got a family history. So if you have a family history of people getting Alzheimer's disease, especially earlier in life, before their 80s, that would be something to consider. If you're having memory loss symptoms and you want to be evaluated, that's one of the tests I'd want to get done. A doctor can order it, but the truth is, it's a lot less expensive if you just do the 23andMe, and you'll find out if you click on one of the boxes, yes, I want to know my Alzheimer's risk, they'll tell you if you've got it or not. That's the least expensive way to find out your ApoE4 genotype. And you get a ton of other kind of cool information with that test.
Great. I'm so glad you mentioned that. I have that sitting here on the counter. I need to do that, 23andMe, and send it back.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. So any other risk factors that you haven't mentioned?
I think if we just dealt with those, we would get rid of 90% of all of memory loss. We'd be like, okay, that was awesome.
Okay. So here's what I'm doing right here. Of course, I'm always like jotting down little notes as I'm listening, but right now I've got this little mind map going on. And so in the middle, I have inactivity, and then I have elevated blood sugar pointing to it, depression pointing to it, cardiovascular risk factors pointing to it. So of course I'm wanting the right answer here, but if we all became more active, we would take care of an awful lot of the risk.
Yeah. And so I put, activity as one of the cores of anything. If we're trying to lose weight or prevent heart disease or be mentally sharper and prevent memory loss, activity is one of your core 4 steps to getting there. There's no way around it.
Great.
Can't do it without it.
Fantastic. Love it. Okay. So, and I think that came to my mind as well when you were talking about the genotype. And if somebody is right now inactive, they're fairly sedentary, and there is some family history of memory loss, or they are feeling like they've got memory loss, would you have them modify their lifestyle factors first to see if that cleared it up, or would you have them go and do the genotype first?
If they had the family history, I might suggest the genotype, because there's some things I recommend people with the ApoE4 do differently than the other 80%. So I think there's a value in knowing it either way.
Great.
You'll like this. If you have it, you benefit more from exercise than the rest of the population. So there's even more incentive to go work out.
Good. I knew sure I liked you.
See, I have to share with your listeners, I've seen you working out in the gym, and I know you have an awesome workout routine because I've been sweating next to you on the machine right next to yours. So I know you're an exercise enthusiast. So I should just share that with all your listeners so they don't misunderstand.
We do. We walk the talk, right? Okay.
We do.
So we're in there. People think we're working on our biceps, right, Stephen? And we're working on our brains.
Yeah, we're working on our brains. Absolutely. We're building better brains. And it's never too late. Even 80-year-olds, when they add an exercise program, have been shown, they've done studies on 80-year-olds and who are inactive. And the control group stayed inactive and their brain shrunk. And the intervention group added some strength training aerobics, and their brain literally grew. The memory center of their brain got bigger over time. In 80-year-olds, it's never too late. That's my message.
Love that. Love that. All right. So in your clinical experience, we can improve cognitive function, but define that for me again. So I think when I hear you talk about, we know the brain will grow, and you talk about memory, but is that productivity? Is that problem solving? Is that a little of everything, or is it primarily memory?
Well, let me clarify. So in our clinic, we do 100 markers of aging. Masley Optimal Health Center, we assess how people age and how old they are on the inside. And we look at artery plaque growth and bone density and brain processing speed and memory and overall cognitive function. And then we've published data looking at what factors predict, is your brain getting better or worse over time? It's pretty cool to get to track this database with over 1,000 patients in it who get all these testing done. But so here's what we've noticed, that after a month, my average patient goes, wow, I feel mentally sharper, quicker, more productive. I can get more done. I sleep better. My romance is better. Oh, I feel great. And sometimes they say, I forgot that I could feel this good. Thank you. And that's, to me, that's the best thanks I ever get. When someone says that, I just love it, that they had forgot how well they could feel. So that's what motivates me to keep going. Now, when we've done in our tests, we've done randomized clinical trials where we randomize people who didn't exercise, didn't eat well to our program, a 4-step program. We found that we tested them before and after, and their brain speed actually improved 25 to 30%. Their attention and focus went up 40%. Their overall brain score improved. So we know we can make people more productive and mentally sharper and enhance many aspects, not just of memory, but all of cognitive functioning. So I think that's a really important point. And then from our database, we look at what things predict, what steps, what foods, what risk factors like blood sugar and inactivity impact your brain performance. And I pretty much know that if someone follows the Better Brain Solution program, the average person's going to see a dramatic improvement in their brain processing speed and their productivity and sharpness very quickly, really within about 30 days.
That's phenomenal. That's short-term activity. So when you're talking about, of course, getting more active, love that one. But when you're talking about foods, when they follow your protocol and, include the foods you're recommending, what are you talking about? What foods do you ask people to add to improve brain function?
We have a dozen foods I ask people to add, but, kind of go through the list. One of them is based on like plant pigments, things like green leafy vegetables. I mean, it's amazing. Who would have thought they could be that powerful? That people who eat a cup a day of green leafies, their brain on average is 11 years younger than someone who doesn't eat them. 11 years. I mean, that's a lot for just eating a cup of like broccoli a day, which is good for us. So, but all the colorful vegetables are really good. The only vegetables I avoid are potatoes because they have a high blood sugar response, glycemic load. All the berries and fruits, all those colorful pigments are really great for our brain. They protect us from memory loss and decline. But, so is dark chocolate and cocoa. It's got to be at least 74% really to make the cut. Green tea, coffee in moderation, 1 or 2 cups a day. Those are also associated with better brain performance. But there's a whole bunch of smart fats that are good for your brain. And in fact, when they did the Mediterranean study and they compared a low-fat diet to a smarter fat diet where we added more olive oil and nuts, adding olive oil and nuts improved brain function and slow cognitive decline. And the people in the low-fat diet group had a decrease in brain performance and had accelerated memory loss. So I'm not suggesting a low-fat diet, but I'm not recommending bad fat. So it's like carbs. There's good carbs and there's bad ones. And you want your good carbs to have pigment and fiber. And your bad ones would be like bread and flour and sugar. But there's good fats and bad fats. And so we want to get rid of hydrogenated fats and, these corn oils and vegetable oils. But we definitely want smart fats to be added in there. Things like avocado and avocado oil and nuts and nut oils and wild salmon, avocados themselves. All those are awesome fats that we want to add and eat more of because our brain is 40% fish oil by weight, these long chain omega-3s, especially DHA, and it's probably 60% fat by weight. So when you restrict your fat, you're actually shrinking your brain.
I remember that quote from the last time you were on as one of my favorites. As women listening, we are an audience who some of us are struggling to give up that old habit gravity about fat potentially making us fat. And logically, I think everything you're saying makes sense to us as women in midlife. And yet it can be really hard to let go. So I'm so glad you're mentioning it again. I don't think we can't hear it too much is really the message. Okay. What about supplements? So I'm going to take a venture here, a guess that maybe omega-3s are on this list, but are there supplements you recommend to protect the brain that we should be taking?
Well, we can start with omega-3. So I would start with food. I always prefer you get what you can from food. That's my choice. So if someone's going to eat 2 to 3 servings of wild salmon, sardines, trout, sole, cold water, smallmouth fish that aren't high in mercury, then they don't need a supplement for the omega-3. But the truth is probably at least 70% of people are not going to eat wild salmon 2-3 times a week. It's just not going to. I try to get my patients to do that, but the truth be told, it's not going to happen for most people. I can do it, but that doesn't matter. So yes, if they're not going to eat those fish, then I'm going to recommend they get at least 1,000 milligrams of DHA, EPA combined each day. And the quality of that is super important. I mean, there's been a lot of studies that have used cheap, rancid fish oil, which has free radicals in it. It's probably harmful. So I think of all the supplements, the most important one for quality is long-chain omega-3 fatty acids like fish oil. And so, yes.
Can you say something about how do you know if you are choosing a high-quality fish oil? Because I think this is a question that's come up before. And, how do I know if my fish oil is rancid? Say I've got one right now and I'm listening and I have one on the shelf. How do I know it's good?
Pretty easy because, technically you want to know in parts per million the peroxides that are in it. But here's the easy way. You can just stick a needle in it, taste a drop, and it should taste like good quality fish in a nice restaurant. If it's rancid, it doesn't take a rocket scientist or $100 lab test to measure lipid peroxides. It's terrible. So it should taste good. It's not lemonade. Some of these things are lemon flavored fish oil. It's not lemonade. Believe me, it's going to be like salmon with lemon on it. It's still fishy, but it's pleasant. That's good quality fish oil. But I'll tell you, 90% of fish oil sold in the U.S. is illegal in Europe, Australia, and New Zealand. just the vast majority, if you're buying it at a box store, it's very unlikely it's good quality. That they don't bother, or they don't, they're selling cheap stuff, not always at a cheap price, that's been damaged. So you have to be really careful.
So where should we get it?
Well, one is just you can taste it, but I mean, brands I use are Designs for Health or Thorne or Nordic Naturals or Metagenics. There's several brands of companies that really take pride in the quality of it. So it's not impossible to find, but you're not going to find it at your local grocery store or pharmacy, or probably not the vitamin shop down the street on the corner either. Okay. That's the sad truth.
Great. And many of my listeners know I've recommended Nordic Naturals before, so I'm glad you mentioned that really one.
Good company. They have a really good product. And then other nutrients that are so there's others. That's one, but I would say vitamin D is essential. We know it helps prevent cancer. It's good for your heart. It's good for your bones, but it's essential for your brain. I mean, it impacts every cell in our body. And if you're low in vitamin D, you're much more likely to get cognitive decline. Vitamin B12, I think, is becoming, the deficiency in B12 is more and more common, and it can cause permanent, irreversible neurologic harm, including dementia and memory loss. So, I mean, it's a big issue. All these people taking acid blocking agents, Tums, Rolaids, ranitidine, omeprazole, all these acid blockers for heartburn make us not absorb B12. So we need a much bigger dose. So we got to get rid of B12.
How much vitamin D, Stephen? How much D?
Well, here in my state, Florida, the Sunshine State, we know that if you're not getting 2,000 a day, almost 2/3 of people are deficient. Almost nobody's optimal. So usually 2,000 is enough to get most people there. And some people don't absorb it as well. I like to do a level, and I'd like to see someone's level in the 50 to 60 range. But most people need at minimum of 2,000 a day, and some people need up to 5,000 a day. And I've never really ever seen a case of someone overdosed or a problem if they're at one of those two dosages.
Okay, great. And what about B12?
Well, usually about 100 micrograms is the minimum, especially if you're on an acid blocking agent and say you're past 50. So if you're one of your, wonderful flipping 50 people and you want life and energy, you need B12, because B12 is what helps us make energy. We can't make it without that. So I usually look at 100 or up to 500 micrograms a day, because as we age, we don't absorb it nearly as well. Other ones would be magnesium. Magnesium, 70% of Americans are magnesium deficient. And we get migraines and muscle cramps and constipation. It's good for your blood pressure and blood sugar as well. And blood sugar is, to me, the number one cause for premature memory loss. So that's a biggie. But magnesium is needed for your brain interconnections. All those synaptic connections between brain cells the messages are magnesium dependent. So when you're magnesium deficient, you're making your brain sluggish. And we don't want that. And studies have showed people with mild cognitive impairment, if they take some magnesium, they will improve their brain function in a significant way. So I'm always looking for at least 400 milligrams of magnesium every day.
A specific type of magnesium, I think that's always a little confusing to listeners.
It is, and I'm actually really glad you asked that, but that makes it more complicated, doesn't it? So the one I try to avoid is magnesium oxide, because it's a GI irritant. We used to give it in the hospital for preps to clean people out overnight, and it was awful. I mean, what a horrible thing.
It's harsh. Right? Yeah.
So why would we put that in a supplement? What were they thinking? They were thinking it's cheap and we're going to make money. That's what they were thinking. So better than magnesium oxide the best would be magnesium citrate is okay, but much better is protein-bound sources, because protein-bound has twice the absorption, and it's really gentle on our stomach. I like gentle on the stomach. So, magnesium glycinate, magnesium malate, or magnesium chelate. And there's a new guy on the block, or gal, magnesium L-threonate. That's a special form of protein-bound magnesium that they've used in one study, and it showed improvements in brain function and performance and cognitive scores. So that was intriguing for people with mild cognitive improvement. And magnesium threonate has better absorption across the blood-brain barrier, which was maybe its call to fame. So of all the types, that's probably the one I'm most intrigued by.
Fantastic. Okay.
And a probiotic.
All right.
I mean, you gotta help your gut.
Probiotic.
Right?
Okay.
I mean, some people call the gut the second brain because there's so many of the activities that go on in your gut with your immune system and the brain activating chemicals that stimulate our brain, like serotonin. They're produced in the gut. So if our gut's a mess and we don't have the right microbes living in there, that healthy microbiome, we're inflamed. We don't process nutrients properly. So those would really be my top ones. A good multi with B12, mixed folates, vitamin D, magnesium, fish oil, and a probiotic. There would be my top 5.
Okay, so talk to me about probiotic just for a second. So listeners, that's not unfamiliar. We've talked about that as well. Stephen, do we need a probiotic? I mean, always and forever? Are we going to get married and stay married to that? Or is there a point where we've straightened out our gut and we've got good bacteria that we can part ways with a probiotic and get what we need from food?
Well, first, all your probiotics in your gut are going to die unless you feed them. And what they need is fiber. We have to eat vegetable, fruit, beans, and nuts. I mean, kind of the proper amount would be like 5 cups of fruit and vegetables a day, half cup of beans, 2 to 3 handfuls of nuts or seeds, maybe a little piece, an ounce or 2 of dark chocolate. If you eat that every day, that's 30 grams or 10 servings of fiber. You're feeding your gut flora. And if you don't, they'll starve to death. So at any point we give up fiber, we lose it all and we have to start over. And then how do you get it there in the beginning? I mean, a vaginal birth helps because you picked up some from your mom at birth and it got to start growing. And hopefully most of us got that, but not everyone. And then we can also get it from food along the way if we eat the right fermented foods. Like if you can tolerate dairy, not everyone can. There's yogurt and kefir. And if you don't, or you just choose to avoid it, there's kombucha and there's sauerkraut and all sorts of things foods we can ferment like sauerkraut. Kimchi, miso. Those are all, everybody needs an ongoing supply of those probiotic foods to support us. Now, what if you get put on an antibiotic? What if you have a urinary infection or you get pneumonia and they put you on an antibiotic? That's wiping out hundreds of billions of bacteria, and it takes a long time to grow them back. So anytime somebody gets put on an antibiotic, I'm going to say they need a probiotic boost, like 25 to 50 billion a day for months to try to bring them back to stability. How is that? Did I answer your question?
Yes, you did. Okay. How about choosing a quality probiotic? Do we need to be as picky there as we do with other supplements? How do we find one?
Oh, yeah, it is important. I mean, fish oil is really the worst situation because 90% of it is toxic. I mean, that's pretty bad. You have to be really selective. With probiotics, yes. I don't think of them as toxic. It's just, are they really as live as they should be? And how many bugs do they have? And the more diversity, the better. We want so you'd like to see on the label 10 or 12 different types or more. And you'd like to see, so if you're trying to sustain yourself long-term, like a yogurt a day is 5 billion, or you could take a 5 billion pill. But if you just got an antibiotic blast, or you haven't been eating well and you've been fiber starved and you're just coming around to your senses and saying, okay, this is insane. I'm going to take better care of myself. You probably need 25 to 50 billion a day for months, 2 to 3, 4 months, just to get a boost and get started.
Great. Okay. Fantastic. Huge list. All right. So listeners, I'm going to take notes. I am taking notes and I will provide them for you. So be sure you hit the show notes afterward. So let's talk about this one, Stephen, because I know that this is a big piece of what happens certainly to women at midlife and probably in our society and the speed of life today to many people. How does chronic unmanaged stress impact the brain?
Well, short-term stress is good for us. I'm glad you made Deborah, you made the critical distinction, chronic long-term, right? Short-term stress, like we got a project to do and we get it done and we feel really proud of it. That's good for us. That gives us purpose and challenge. And we never even if we're 85, we still need purpose and challenge in our lives and things we can accomplish and feel good about. But what if you have stress every day, like a bad relationship or a bad coworker or boss, or you're in a terrible situation, it's day after day after day? Well, that chronic stress raises and it depletes us. I mean, our cortisol levels go up. Cortisol is the hormone we do to manage stress. And in the short term, it works great. But in the long, it helps bring blood sugar out so we can outrun somebody chasing us. It mobilizes minerals so we can repair better. But the problem is, what if it's every day? That means you lose bone mass, you lose muscle mass. You don't like that. You'll actually gain fat around your waistline. That's not good. Your blood sugar levels go up, but even worse, your brain shrinks. The memory center of your brain shrinks. The hippocampus decreases in size in people with chronic prolonged stress if they're not managing it. And I don't think we can get rid of chronic stress. I think there's plenty of it out there, and I don't know how to avoid it. So the challenge becomes, how do we proactively manage it so we don't have these spikes in cortisol? And I would say we have to do something every day. We should work out every day. When we sweat, we're getting rid of toxins, but we're also deflating stress in our lives. We need enough sleep. But the third key, really important step is to add something like meditation or use a tool like heart math, where you get feedback when you're trying to meditate, where you get peaceful and calm for just 10 minutes a day. It doesn't take that long, but it's pretty amazing that in 10 minutes, we can actually change ourselves hormonally, lower our cortisol levels, roll over the adrenaline, and really be more focused and more productive and be able to get more done.
Love that. Love that. Heartmath.com. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. Okay. Wonderful. All right. So here's the big trick of the day, right? The biggest question of all is there a question that you wish I'd have asked? Is there something that we have not covered that you think is really important?
Well, most people, our nature, not everyone, of course, but most people are waiting for something to go wrong, try to fix it. It's not like with our car where we take it in regularly for a tune-up before it breaks down on the trip. We wait for something to go wrong. The problem is, by the time you notice you're having brain symptoms, it's already shrunk. I mean, you don't want your brain to shrink because it's really hard to, if ever, going to get it back. So by the time you start noticing, I forgot why I walked in the room. Where's my phone again? What's that phone number? I had 3 things to do after the meeting, and I can't remember that. What was the third one? By the time we reach that point, our brain's already been shrinking for 5 to 10 years. So my point is, don't wait until you have symptoms. We know that Alzheimer risk is going to increase 200% in the next 12 to 15 years. It's going to double. It's going to be a lot more common. That we've got to take action steps now to prevent this crisis. And so don't wait. It's coming. It's an avalanche. It's an epidemic, and it's on the way, and we can get out of the way. And I would say when you're getting out of the way, not only do you prevent memory loss, but you're going to feel better. Our data shows that if people follow our 5-step plan, they can improve their brain performance by 25 to 30%. They're sharper, quicker, more productive, less forgetful. So don't wait till you have symptoms. Please if you have symptoms, then get going. Don't let it get worse. Your brain's shrinking. It's like a snowball. It's going to get worse and worse and worse. So if you have symptoms, take action now. If you don't, why not have a better brain? Who doesn't want a better brain? Take the steps to improve your brain, feel fantastic, and prevent the scariest disease in America today.
Love that. Wow. Perfect. Okay. So talking about the book, I'm so excited, and you're just about to release this brand new book, but you have something really exciting going on. You have a quiz that kind of will tell people, where they're at. Tell them, I'm going to place the link in the show notes. So listeners, if you're walking, keep walking. If you're lifting, keep lifting. By all means, if you're driving, don't try to write this down. I will include it for you. What can people expect when they go to the quiz? How long will it take them? What will it tell them?
Well, it's 10 simple questions to try to get a better idea of where are you? Do you have early symptoms of cognitive decline? And if so, take action. And hopefully you don't. But, why it's less than 2 minutes to take a quiz and find out, okay, am I at risk? Do I have any early signs? Is this something I need to pay more attention to? You could use it for yourself, or you could have a loved one you're worried about, and you could send them the quiz and have them take it too. That's another option. So, and with the quiz as a bonus, so the book comes out January 2nd. But in the meantime, you could take the quiz, see where you're at. And as a bonus to get the results, we'll send you my shopping guide, Better Brain Shopping Guide. What are the 12 foods you need to add? And what are the 12 foods you need to avoid to protect and improve your brain? So if you want a better brain in just 30 days, that's going to give you the tools to get started, the foods to add, what to do. You've already got the activity for them covered. I don't have to worry about that. I feel like that's already a slam dunk. So yeah, that's a great opportunity to see where you're at. Everybody should have some idea of how am I doing? There's nothing more than important than our brain. I mean, heck, we can replace a liver, a heart, a kidney. You can't replace your brain. So check it out, see how it's doing, and take care of it.
I love that. And congratulations. I'm so excited to get the Better Brain solution and looking forward to that. So can't wait for all of the excitement leading up to it. So listeners, highly encourage you to go take that quiz. I'm going to jump on over there and look at it. I'm going to put a pin right in my fish oil supplement today. Although I do have Nordic Naturals, it should be good to go. I'm just going to check. All right. So listeners, if there is a question that you have that I didn't ask, please leave it below the show link at flipping50.com and join us on the Facebook fan page at Flipping50TV. If you enjoyed the show, I'd love you to leave a rating in iTunes and then share this with a friend so you can surround yourself with a supportive community of women on the same journey, all with better brains. What are you waiting for? Start Flipping 50 today.